Good morning. Glory to Jesus Christ. Glory forever. I am Father Anthony Perkins, and this is my Fool Head, where you get to hear my inner Sybil as a retired intelligence officer, theologian, and politologist. Talks about culture and whatever else comes into his fool head. And here I am. Welcome to my house in Hartwell, Georgia. For me, it is 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. This is like my fourth cup of coffee. Some of you wouldn't call it coffee. Because it is mostly decaf, which is partly caffeinated. And I have, to complete the heresy, I have oatmeal milk in there. And oatmeal milk, you can see there that it doesn't give you that color that you're used to if you like cream in your coffee. But it does imitate the kind of the mouthfeel a bit. So, yeah, oatmeal milk. It's a part of my life now. Why? Because I'm 54 years old and I'm trying to keep my numbers down. And also, it makes fasting just kind of natural. And while I am formally on the old calendar, I am also pastoring, if not the official pastor, of a parish that is on the new calendar. So it is appropriate for me to fast with them as well. So the Nativity fast, the Pilipivka, has not started on the old calendar, but it has started on the new. So happy oatmeal milk. That's asceticism right there. Man, true asceticism. I'm terrible at this live stream thing. I only announced that I was going to do a live stream an hour ago. And I don't do social media, so I didn't announce it on Facebook or anything like that. Yeah, so there you go. I have this attitude towards content that I just put it out there. I don't promote any of my content. So, if you want to promote it, that's fine. You think it's useful, that's fine. Enjoy it. If you want to share it, share it. If not, that's cool too. So, been a busy week here. Thanksgiving, a couple days ago. That's always awesome to take some time and give thanks for the many blessings that we have in our lives. The blessing of lots of food on the table. Yeah, it was nice. Today, I subtitled today's show. Let me see, make sure I get it right. Something about aliens, kind of trolling people with that a little bit. Let's see. Something about aliens. Oh, yeah. So I'm just doing this from memory because my internet connection's slow. Thanks to this connection, I assume. But are all the aliens and she demons? And just in case we don't get to it, probably not. Yeah, and Lord willing, we'll get to that. So a couple of things of note that you might be interested in. This week, Father Harry Linsenbigler and I recorded 3 more episodes of To Be a Kingdom, our new Ancient Faith Radio podcast about ecclesiology. That makes it sound really dull. It's not dull. And we're keeping them about 30 minutes. That's intentional, right? Little bite-sized chunks of conversation. But so far we've recorded 2 sets of 3, right? So you get that continuity. And I think they're planning on releasing them once a week. So if we keep this up and record 3 episodes every week or 2, you'll be able to listen to those episodes well after we repose. Right? But it's a lot of fun, and these were good. We're dealing with questions that people are actually interested in. So it's not dry, but we do use Greek and people love that because it's a sign of that you're not just making stuff up, right? So we go to the scriptures in the form that they've been given to us, right? In the New Testament, we look at mostly the Greek, but also the Hebrew for the Old Testament to try to draw and help provide some additional leverage on what's going on in the scriptures. So, pretty awesome. Check that out. And then what else might y'all be interested in? I did an interview with a good friend of mine, Matthew Wessner. We went to Ohio State together. And I was 2 or 3 years ahead of him in the PhD program. But he actually finished. So he's a professor at the Army War College now. And I'm a PhD student again. Yeah. I didn't get that ambition gene real well. So while my dissertation work was cut short by 9/11, and that's why I left, I could have gotten done quicker. I just wasn't in a hurry because they gave me a full-time job. And I'm like, awesome. I'll just keep working at this, keep teaching. It'll be awesome. I'll get done in another year or 2. So you never know what another year or 2 will bring. But the interview with Matthew was about discernment. And it's not the kind of discernment or epistemology that many people are putting out in the Orthodox world that I've seen. So we focus, as is good and meet and right, focus on the theological basis for discernment and how we know things are true, and scriptural basis for discernment, which is also incredibly, and I study both of those as well, right? But what social science brings to the table, a couple of things. One is, a familiarity with the physical mechanisms and the indicators of what is going on in the mind. So the one part, actually a couple parts of the brain, of what we call the mind, right? So as Orthodox Christians, we know that what we often call mind is divided into, I like parsing it into 3. It's very patristic. And the 3 parts are the basis level is the gut or the reins, okay? And the second part is the intellect, the brain, right? And then the third part is what we call the heart, right? It's the nous. And all these words, they get used in different ways because we've been talking about this stuff for at least 2,000 years, right? So there's some bleed over on terminology, some concept stretching and things like that. And psychology has very little to say about the nous. And it has only a superficial understanding and insight into the workings of the intellect and the reins. But it's useful. It's useful stuff because they have a consistent way. And the second way is they have a consistent way of looking at things and, hypothesis generation, hypothesis testing. And I love that. I'd love to be checked by and in conversation with the people who tell me, look, be careful when you objectify things, to test hypotheses, that you don't so abstract them that you and decontextualize them that your findings become meaningless. And I'm very in touch with that. Okay, so because that is the danger. That is exactly what happens when scientific investigation is not grounded in a deeper understanding of meaning, right? Meaning that is based on the logos. Nothing can be separated from the logos and still have any kind of ontology, right? But we behave as if it did in the social science. So as an orthodox politologist, political scientist, if you will, I cannot separate myself from that understanding of the logos and creation's participation relationship with him, right? Him, the person. Oh, there's my little dog. That little dog's crazy. Yeah. Don't do drugs. So let me connect those dots for you. So we got this little dog, Penny. She's a Morkie. Yeah. It was going to be our only dog, and got her because they don't shed. They look like little versions of real dogs, and yeah. And then we ended up inheriting another big dog, which is the deeper bark that you'll sometimes hear. That's Bo. We inherited him when my wife's parents were posed. And it is just, it's been interesting seeing how the rhythms of our family have gradually civilized him. But the little dog was generally okay, didn't have that extreme hyperactivity or barkiness of a lot of little dogs. But then one night, the big dog has some health problems, and the little dog, the pain meds for the big dog got dropped on the floor, and the little dog just scarfed it right up. So pain meds that were created for a 100-pound dog were eaten by an 8-pound dog. And the results were, as you might expect, not all that great. So, intervention and things, the dog is still with us, but don't do drugs. She's got some quirks now. And, quirky. So you'll hear that quirkiness. So I brought Matthew on to share some insights on how to discern the news, how to discern research. And he gave us 4 or 5 indicators that the presentation was disingenuous or was not useful. Okay, that somebody was maybe selling you something, or they just weren't doing a good job. And I think that's really useful because, for one, because we live in a world where, this manipulation is constantly going on. What is truth? Remember the 3 founding scriptures for guiding this podcast, right? I said in my amazement, every man is a liar, right? The psalmist. Again, the psalmist. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, who could stand? And then, lastly, what is truth? Right? And that's, it's tough. And boy, just for school, I'm taking a class on social media and how it affects democracy and authoritarianism. Digital media, he calls it. And he had us watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix, right? And this came out about a year ago. And if you've followed the science or even the political hearings and stuff, the criticisms of social media, you're familiar with the general thrust of the movie. But it does a good job at laying out how social media is just messing with us. And they were pretty dubious about whether we would, the equilibrium that we find, for one, that we would ever find an equilibrium in our relationship with social media, because the technology behind it is, increasing literally exponentially, right? And we are not able to keep up with the advances in technology, the specificity of the algorithms, the strength of the massive data that they're collecting on every single one of our movements and interactions with the screen and our devices and so on. So they don't know if and if we do, they're very dubious about whether it can possibly be healthy, much less democratic or free. So surveillance capitalism, all this kind of stuff. It's not just, Marxist criticisms of neoliberalism. It's baked into this social media technology system. Anyways, and it gets us used to interacting with information in a certain way that isn't real. It doesn't stick with the reality of things. And in our confusion, we are amazing each other because we are liars. And we can see it in others, but we can't see it in ourselves. And we're not in community, so we don't listen to people who criticize us. It's not a good recipe. So I had Matthew on to share these things with us. And this is it's infected orthodoxy in a huge way. Just look at how people who are, it is difficult for people to simultaneously believe good things about the ecumenical patriarchate and good things about the Moscow patriarchate. And part of this is a way that anything about those two, about the way it is presented, and it is presented, it hits almost all of the indicators of, bad presentation that Matthew went over. Straw manning the other person. It's just, and that's us. That's us. We can't blame that on the world. That's us. That's our thought leaders within orthodoxy. That's how they're presenting this information. They're framing it in a way that doesn't just straw man the tribal other within orthodoxy as if it actually demonizes, to delegitimize. That ain't right. That ain't right. With the Lord there is forgiveness, but with the Lord there is charity, but not with us. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, the Lord is gracious, but man, who are we imitating? Okay, so do you want to talk about aliens? Yeah? You want to talk about aliens? You want to talk about the she? So Sindhe, that is how that is pronounced. Now you know something that 90% of people don't. You may have heard of banshees. You may have even heard of the she. But unless, and you may have heard about them, and then you may read, like, Celtic mythology, and see this word, Sindhe, Sindhe, and you're like, and when you read things, you don't know how they're pronounced, right? And especially with something like that, you may have a concept of the she, but now you have a concept of the Sindhe. Right? Well, they're the same thing, and I don't know. Father Andrew could no doubt tell us the etymology of how that works. Right? But, oh my goodness! But they are, the elves. Basically, that's you're talking about the she when you're talking about the elves. But not just like the token elves, but the elves as other. So Midsummer Night Dream, isn't that what it's called? Midsummer Night Dream. by Shakespeare. And if you haven't listened to that or seen it, or I guess if you have to read it, it's awesome. I mean, it's classic. It's Shakespeare playing with all kinds of mythologies and political tropes, and it's Shakespeare. It's awesome. But it's the she, right? About how when you go through that thin place into the place you don't belong, that very little good comes out of that. And so are they demons? Are the modern she, the aliens, are they demons? Because you have the mythology of both. They really overlap a lot, and secular researchers have noticed this. When you read the secular work on ufology, UFOlogy, Xenology, this is what they point out, is that things are interpreted, unknown things are interpreted within the worldview, using the culture, the symbols, and the stories and the mythologies of the present day. How else could it be done? You can't interpret things based on a worldview that you don't have. You can't interpret things based on symbols and stories that you do not already know. It's just not possible. So when something comes in that's strange, your mind will fit it into that, your symbol, the stories, the words that you know and that resonate with you, that hit. And by the way, that means that you're going to miss the aspects that if it doesn't belong, if it's not completely described by your worldview, you're only going to notice the attributes that do. And this is maybe it's obvious to you, but if you bring that in fully, it makes me more humble and more charitable. And it also makes me quieter in my relationship to God and theology. Okay, so apophatic, if you will. So apophatic that I have 3 active podcasts and a live stream. Yeah, I know. I get it. Life is paradox. Okay, so the idea is that unknown things come into the world, and they're interpreted through the worldview of the existing people, and those explanations there, the thing being described will be mysterious because it won't fit in. Its movement within our world, it looks like their movement and their existence within our world is it's like chaotic. It's unpredictable. It's mysterious. It's dangerous. And part of that may be because they are chaotic. They are unpredictable. But part of it may be because we don't have the right set of stories, the right symbols, the right words in order to understand them in their fullness, right? And man, one of the theologians that really got me thinking in a more productive way about these things was Michael Heiser, when he was on Coast to Coast years and years ago, right? He did an episode on Elohim that I was like, whoa, who is this dude and where can I find out more, right? So he had written a dissertation on the divine council, right? And he expert at ancient languages. His theology is not perfect, right? But he's also interested in paranormal, UFO, and things, and he has a fairly sophisticated understanding of culture. He's not he's not perfect because he's not a political scientist. Of course, it's obvious, but pretty good. And so when he talked about the Elohim as being, yes, we as biblical scholars or people who study the Bible, I'm not a scholar of the Bible, but I interact with it a lot. We're familiar with Elohim based on context. It can be the God, or it can be little g gods, right? I get that. Okay. And then, and we play with that, and it helps us to discern what passages are pointing towards and what they're not. But then when he goes and he says, oh, by the way, it's used here, here, and here in these other ways, and all of them suggest that Elohim can be thought of as a term for ones who are not from here, right? They are outside certainly our worldview, if you will. They don't match our expectations of place. And so that includes angels, it includes fallen angels, it includes, all the stripes of demons, ghosts, if you believe that they exist, and we'll have a show on that, or you can look at my old Ortho Analytica shows on it. Orthodoxy is ambivalent. You may not be ambivalent, but orthodoxy is a bit ambivalent. And so those are Elohim. And, so are aliens Elohim? Well, I don't know, but certainly spiritual beings from there, from elsewhere outside our worldview, right? Yeah, angels fit into that, certainly. Demons fit into that. Fallen angels certainly fit into that. Oh, the God? Yeah, because, and they're going to look mysterious, and they're going to not match the sorts of expectations that our worldviews have gotten us to, expect. Yeah, so there you go. Now, here's the thing that is that I'd like to add to this conversation, right? Because there's good work, right, done saying, if you see an alien, beware. Be careful when you interact with strangers. You may interact with an angel unawares, right? Be careful when you interact with aliens because you may interact with a demon unawares. I think that's great advice. It's great advice. Yeah. Yeah. And, this ain't from around here, are you? Right? Okay. So, what would I like to add? So here's a question for you. Many years ago, it's probably 10, 15 years ago, 60 Minutes, back when people still watched it, they did a good investigation on the unreliability of eyewitness testimony. And man, the science on this is pretty good too, that eyewitnesses seeing the same event will report it differently. It's like they were living in different worlds, right? How does that happen? First, let me ask you, okay, do you believe that's true? That people can see the same event, and then when they go to describe it, they will be describing what sounds like a different event. If you don't, then what I tell you isn't going to, but take this, if you take that as a given, yes, we do. And if we were able to run that scenario twice, and we put you here the first time, have you look at it, and then you put you there a second time and have you look at it, maybe a day later, right? But same event, just a day later, because some variables have to be allowed to change, that you would see something different. And then we could look, we could study this. We could say, is it based on what they ate? Was it a bit of bad soup, right? Like in Dickens? or what? Anyways, the fact is that we are unreliable witnesses. And I'm sorry about that. I do have the birds covered because I understand that they do bother people. But that's Waddles, man, and he wants out. He's like, hey, it's time to uncover me. Oh, and that's Frankie, that last one there. Yeah, we have 4 birds right here. So, eyewitness testimony, notoriously unreliable. Okay? Why? Is it demons? No, seriously. Why is it that you, I, Joe Bob down the street, don't see things correctly? Is it demons? I'm not being facetious. I'm exaggerating, but I'm not being facetious. Is it? And very few people would answer that question. Yeah, of course it is. They might say, could be. Okay, yeah, I'll buy it. Could be. And sometimes maybe it is. But what social science has done is it describes first this phenomenon of witness unreliability, right? And just that it's a fact, right? Okay, and that's enough. It'll then go down to, and it'll use that as an independent variable to try and explain court cases and things. And it'll use it as a dependent variable that it tries to explain. Why is it people notice different things? And they'll look at background circumstances and so on. Okay, cough button there for a second. Do you see where I'm going with this? Not all of our misperceptions are spiritual. I mean, not all of them are caused by outside spiritual manipulation. Some of them are internal misperceptions. You can't. It's the distinguishing this. You pulling apart the spiritual from the mental is. It's a lie, right? We do it. We say, "Oh, you go to that psychologist; they'll help you with your mental illness," and then you go and see, your priest or some kind of elder, Orthodox elder, to help you with the spiritual aspects of it, right? It's actually, the two are intertwined, and you could still, recognize the need for people with various expertise, just like you would with a physical ailment. There's someone who may have specific expertise on one manifestation of an illness and another that has expertise on another, and together they can help heal the whole person. But certainly part of this problem is a misfiring of the wetware, a misinterpretation of stimuli, right? And that's a huge part of it. We have type 1 and type 2 errors. We have false positives and we have false negatives with our perceptions. Is that always demonic? And I say no. I think you have to be agnostic. You can't know just based on what someone saw how to interpret it. I'm convinced that most interactions with the supernatural, observable, sense, the hearing, the sight, mostly visual, that most of that is that level of misperception. What does this mean? This means most observations of aliens, ghosts, whatever, that most of it is misperception. It's not so if you see an alien and you're like, is that a demon? Is that an angel? Which one? I'd be like, maybe, but it's probably just your brain, just messing up. And you can call it deception, but there's no intent to deceive on the part of your brain. It's just trying to do its job with inadequate information. So the answer is to do this and move on. You can't trust your brain, by the way. You cannot trust your wetware. How can you live through the last 2 years and see how, if not you, everybody else has been manipulated by poor reporting of the news? I know it's everybody else, it's not you, but the rest of us, we've been deceived many times. And we still think that we can trust our brains. We don't have this, truth radar. And so what good spiritual development does, and what good social science in a different way and to a superficial level does, is it teaches methods of discernment. Methods of discernment. Right? It reminds me of, I was talking with a friend, someone I'm close to, and they are on the, autism spectrum, right? And so they noted how they have a hard time interpreting signals, right? Social signals, very difficult for them. And so people behaved in a random way according to their perception, right? Again, worldview, right? This person is not acting according to expectations within my worldview. I don't have any way of understanding this. It just looks random. And, this is stressful, incredibly stressful. So what helped this person was, what's called social stories when you're teaching them, right? Here I'm bringing in a little bit of the classes that I'm taking as I learn to become a special education educator. I finish up my coursework. I've got one more course to take after this semester, and then it's just student teaching, and then I can start working as a special education educator. Anyways, social stories. You give a list of indicators that are associated with how that other person is feeling and how they might behave. So reading a book on facial expressions, right? When someone does this, it's an indicator of this. Therefore, you can expect the best way to interact with that is this, right? So it opens up a whole world to them, and it makes it manageable. They begin to understand things that they were misperceiving, because it was outside of the set of symbols and stories that they had. They had no way. And so it just looked like, they were in a thin place, and people were just being weird, overreacting. Okay, but then you learn. You're like, oh, okay. It's not random. There's still not an empathetic sense, right? But it's as if. And it works. So this is like that, right? We all have that. We aren't able to read about events in some kind of objective way, even if it's given to us objectively. And so we need to look for these indicators, and how we need to learn how to read the news. We need to look spiritually, and I've told you, right? I've given you some of these spiritually, and I get these both from experience, my own life as a pastor and someone who, devours and teaches the spiritual patristic literature, right? Things like, recognizing how you react to criticism, how you react to praise. That's the very towards the beginning of self-understanding and the ability to recognize the levers of our malleability, of how people can manipulate us. And then it moves on from there, to watch for people. So you know what the levers are. Most people have levers all over them, and people just grab them, turn you into a puppet, turn you this way or that. And it's very natural for the world to do that to us, especially if it's trying to sell us things, or in the case of narcissists, they're trying to satisfy some kind of inner need, right? So spiritually, there are these indicators of things to watch for, just like there are more mechanical things, and that's what Matthew and I went over were some of the more mechanical things to look for. Oh, let me give you one of them. Okay, ad hominem attacks. So, attacking the other person's intent, attacking their character. Okay, the way Scott Adams puts it, what's his book? How to Not Be Stupid, or something like that, in his typical Scott Adams form, is, if your analysis or their analysis relies on mind reading, it's not serious. It's not serious. If it relies on mind reading, it isn't serious. But we do that all the time within our orthodox analysis, especially of what the other is doing, the political other especially, but increasingly the orthodox other. Does it require you to understand the hearts of the other? Because if it does, it's just selling you something. It's manipulating you. They may not be intentionally, they're probably just playing along the party line, right? But if that's what it is, because you don't have the ability to go from observed behavior to intent. Let me say that again. You don't have the ability to go from observed behavior to intent. Do you know your own heart? How often are you surprised by, well, no, don't go there. Just accept it, be humble, right? And these are, when the scriptures and the church warns us about judging others, this is what it is. It's claiming to have some kind of insight into the inner motivations and the state of the soul of someone else. Of course we judge behavior. Come on. We've got a whole list of things that are healthy, unhealthy, sinful, on the mark, right? According to the way, off the path. It's all over the place. We've got them, right? Of course we can describe and say, hey, not good. But then to go the next step, and that's what happens so often. So-and-so is trying to destroy orthodoxy. So-and-so, and then we have titles which we think are defensible, right? Things like radical feminist, fundamentalist, right? And then you can populate you think that you're giving an actual definition of something, right? I say that they are radical feminists because this, and this. Okay. Right. That may be the definition. You may be able to fit those dots, to cherry pick the right kind of dots and to connect them in a way that makes the, unicorn or whatever it is. But what you're actually doing is saying this person doesn't belong here. And that goes for both ways, for fundamentalists as well. So with the fundamentalist, and this is the attack that, we see more often, honestly, within Orthodoxy, the attack against fundamentalists, you're saying it's a way of saying you're wrong. And you use indicators that more charitably could just be described as someone who is conservative and risk averse towards theology, right? Less comfortable with being at the edges, right? And claiming to have some kind of insight into their soul, right? They are this. No. They're just like you and me. They are souls doing the best they can. How about that? If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, who should stand? We claim to have some kind of inner knowledge of these things. So, there you go. You can't trust your perceptions. There are very few situations where there's not someone trying to manipulate you, and it's not all demonic. It's just fallen humans being fallen humans. So yes, it's part of spiritual warfare, being holy in that kind of a situation. But remember, we are to be unhesitant in our hatred of demons, right? But we are to be even more unhesitant in our love for mankind, for specific individual, for every person. Unhesitating love. And you can't even parse that into hate the sin, love the sinner, right? You hear that sometimes. You can go deep on that, right? But for most of it, it's just a shortcut for this is, I hate the sin and this person is full of it. So, okay, so don't do that. So not only aren't all aliens demonic, neither are your enemies. Not only weren't all the she, and maybe some people are seeing them now. I believe they might. Not only aren't they all demons, neither were their enemies. But there's a tendency, because our worldview has these concepts, to fit the other, the person who makes me uncomfortable, to reduce that cognitive dissonance by defining them as evil, and not just their actions as problematic, right? It's hard to live in a complex world, but it's really not. Just let it go. Just let it go. God's got it figured out, and He's told us our job: love Him, love our neighbor, be holy as He is holy. Okay. And then, once you got that, then, okay, all this other stuff. And here's something. Oh, my goodness. So, hopefully I've given you an extra category of discernment, right? There are just false positives and false negatives that are due to just malfunctioning brain. Hey, Brett. Oh, God bless you. It's great to be with you. No, I forgot to put it out there that I was doing this. So how in the world would you ever know? Yeah. I'm sure you missed the best part, though. So, no, seriously, thanks for your encouragement. So talking about aliens and she and ghosts and all this kind of stuff, about how there's a category that many theologians don't recognize, and I think that it's most of the cases, is just misperceptions. It's just misfirings, right? So when someone says they see an alien, the first question that comes to my mind is it really an alien or is it a demon, right? or I don't just automatically categorize it as a demon. Right? There's also this larger category of just false positive. This is just my mind constructing something around missing data. It's this dot connecting because of worldview. Because there's something that isn't fitting right. I don't have enough data to describe. I don't have enough stories or symbols to describe in a way that makes sense of it. And so I have this category for the strange, nonsensical, and that is alien, that is she, that is ghost. Right? Once it is confirmed that there is something, then we can talk about its, what is it? What is its essence? But I think most of them are just ephemeral. Oh, and hey, good morning, Max. Good to have you here too. Yes, and by the way, when you go back and if you're turned on to this by Father Seraphim Rose in his Religion of the Future, go back and read that chapter on aliens, because he admits for that category. But that's not the purpose of his book. His book is not about discernment per se. His book is about the religion of the future, about how there's this constant desire on the part of the fallen gods and the demons to subvert us, to subvert our culture. That's what the book's about. So in there, and he references the same secular work on aliens that I do about worldview, right? And he mentions it's I don't know if he uses the word often. I don't remember. I haven't read it in a couple of years. But one of the things he says is, look, it can also be just misfiring. Okay, but it doesn't stay on there. I'm staying on there now because, again, I think that that's most of our what we in both our fallenness and our limited cognitive capacity. What is actually just other. We just don't have a way of, we don't have enough data and we don't have enough symbols and stories to flesh it out. It gets fleshed out according to our worldview and our expectations. So, for example, if someone who lives in a world, they've seen ghost stories or something, and they're walking near a cemetery, and there's a sound. Okay, they don't notice that there's a sound necessarily. They just, what is that, oh, there's something here, there's a ghost here, right? And our mind, that's enough data for our mind to flesh out this whole experience of ghost. Because most of what our mind does is filling in gaps, even in our vision. Our minds are fairly lazy. They don't, everything that you're seeing right now, that's not a pixel, right? A lot of it is just being interpolated by the data that it's willing to collect, and it's interpolated in a way that, according to our expectations, worldview, and so on. All right. So much of what we experience is not ghost, is not any of that. So, there's this wonderful story, and I need to trace it down and so I can present where you can find it. But, so if an angel approaches you, what do? Right? Well, and the question is because even demons can appear as angels of light, right? The devil can appear as an angel of light, right? Our discernment is not strong enough to know, right? And yes, there are certain tests you can do and stuff. Okay, fine. But my advice, yeah, Max says, my mind is especially lazy. Yeah, mine too. And, I wonder if that's why I don't love hesychasm so much and apophatic theology so much. It's just a laziness. It's best not to think too much about these things. Just be in peace. It's not that I've achieved some kind of, and you've known me long enough already to know this, that I've achieved some kind of level of enlightenment. It's just laziness. Oh, you mean I can be a good man without thinking much? I want that way. Okay, so what do you do? You're confronted. You see an angel, and there's this dilemma. What do I do? Do I, venerate? You would never worship an angel, but do I venerate? I mean, if an angel of God is reflecting His glory then and there. Maybe your guardian angel, right? Who's done so much for you throughout your life, and will continue to do forever, right? Interceding before God continually, right? So what do? Offer up some thanks. Oh, but it could be a demon, right? Okay. Well, now I'm complicating it. The choice isn't really just between is it an angel or a demon. What I'm telling you, it's probably what you had for lunch yesterday. It could well be just, a delusion, a self-delusion, right? Not a demonic delusion, right? But just this misfiring of mind, this inability of our data collection system and our data interpretation system to give an objective picture. There's no such thing. So my advice in either case is to cross yourself, right? And then to go about your business. How about that? Same advice when someone, if I see a ghost, go about my business, right? Because if I focus on it, I'm not doing what the moment requires. Guaranteed. And in fact, my mind is, I'm so lazy, Max, that if I'm supposed to be writing a paper, seeing a ghost is a great distraction. Oh, wow. Look at that. I'm a theologian. I'm interested in these things, right? Shiny. No, the need of the moment there, Mr. PhD student, is to finish the paper that's due tomorrow. Cross yourself and go on. Right. So the main lesson today is that, we need to have humility when we come to our own discernment, our ability to know things, right? There are things that you can rest in. And if you are interested in orthodoxy, please know this, that orthodoxy is the thing that I can rest in. I can let down my filters when I'm, especially at the divine liturgy or the services or in the prayers of the church, because it's already been vetted for me. This is a safe place. Everything, if I am malleable, then all of that malleability is to my benefit. In the world, that's not the case. My malleability is the levers that the world uses me to drag me into delusion and hell. Okay. All right. So, yeah, Max, that's funny. Would you call that a ghostwriter? Yeah. Yeah. I would never pray for automatic writing. Right. This is one of those paranormal phenomena where people open themselves up so that they can tap into the akashic knowledge of the universe or whatever, and they just give their hand over to the knowledge, and it just no thank you. No thank you. Oh man, can you imagine a more dangerous thing than that? Yeah, I can. Yeah, astral projection. Yeah, that'd be even crazier. Well, it's been good spending time with y'all this morning. I ask for your prayers over the next 2 weeks. I've got many papers to write. I'm wrapping one up on using this something called public theology. And I'm using it to see if it helps us understand the different public theologies, so public statements, presentations and framings of the ecumenical patriarchate and the Moscow patriarch about things like Ukraine and about the different way that they both approached social doctrine versus social ethos, right? And it's kind of fun, but it operates at this strange, material level. But what I like about it is that it's more humble than what I was talking about before, when we claim to know the heart of Patriarch Kirill or Patriarch Bartholomew, right? To the extent I claim to know their heart, I trust their heart, right? Rather than projecting my own sin into their lives, right? Demonizing them. Yeah, so anyways, that's one I'm finishing up now, and then I have to write another one, and then another one, and that'll wrap up one class, and then I've got three more big papers to write and 2 more big exams. So pray for me. And, and a paper to write for a conference in New York City. Get a rope. In New York City in 2 weeks. And that's going to be on prayer. So, I ask for your prayers as I offer you my own. And until next time, Godspeed.